In 2011, CM Punk and Triple H had a very controversial rivalry that blurred the lines between kayfabe and reality. A feud deliberately made to bury Punk's white-hot momentum, its conclusion left a sour taste in many wrestling fans and is one of the reasons for his resentment that led to him walking out 3 years later. But was the rivalry really that bad? Let's talk about it. After hightailing out of the company with the WWE Championship on Money in the Bank 2011 as his contract had expired, CM Punk returned after a month of absence on the July 25th episode of Raw. The week later, Punk would explain why he chose to come back and renew his contract. However, he would be interrupted by none other than the newly appointed COO, Triple H, who took over the helm after Vince McMahon was forced to step down, in storyline that is. A fun little foreshadowing of what happened in reality a decade later. Anyway, Hunter would explain his side of the story, citing him re-signing Punk as good for business. It didn't take long for the confrontation to devolve into a war of words though, with Triple H calling him smug and overrated.
I think that you're a smug, overrated, attention-seeking guy that puts a little bit too much stock in his own hype.
While Punk fired back saying how Triple H was a bully who hugged the spotlight over more deserving talent.
You're a bully who likes to throw his weight around and push people.
This ended with Punk taunting the game to fight back, setting into motion the events that would happen next. Fast forward to SummerSlam 2011, CM Punk faced John Cena in a title versus title match to determine who the real WWE champion is. You see, while CM Punk was away, WWE was forced to hold a tournament to crown an interim WWE champion, which was won by Rey Mysterio. Cena would then challenge and beat Rey for the title on the same night, a huge slap to the face of Mysterio by the way, before Punk ruined Cena's celebration with his return. And to make sure that there will be a definitive winner, Triple H appointed himself as the special guest referee, which definitely didn't play into the finish.
You had one job.
But that was far from the end of it though. As CM Punk was celebrating after the match, Kevin Nash came out of nowhere and completely demolished him, allowing Alberto Del Rio to cash in his Money in the Bank contract to become the new WWE champion. Real quick, we're trying to get to 1,000 subs by the end of the year, so your subscription would really mean a lot. Thank you. On the Raw after SummerSlam, Kevin Nash would come out and explain his actions, saying that he did it because of an alleged text message he received from Triple H telling him to do so. As many of you might know, Nash was one of Hunter's boys, going back to their days in a group called The Click. So it made all the sense in the world that the COO, with power to hire anyone, would bring back one of his closest allies to do his dirty work for him, right? Yeah, except Triple H denied any involvement with it, setting up an unnecessary conspiracy that would bleed into a rivalry between the two months later. But going back to the segment, Punk, who was obviously frustrated that he got screwed over, interrupted Nash and aired his frustrations over what happened, completely burying him with another great promo.
You want to see the text message my little sister Shalene sent me last night? OMG, Kevin Nash, WTF, thought he was dead, LOL.
It looked like a fight was about to break down, but then Punk was stopped by a wall of fake bodyguards. So, the week after, Triple H finally decided to address the elephant in the room and calls Kevin Nash out to tell him that he wasn't the one who sent the text message and asks his friend to leave the building. Big Daddy Cool was obviously not cool with what he just heard, but before he can react, guess who came out to interrupt? The main man, CM Punk himself, who, like everybody else, wanted to get to the bottom of the conspiracy and point his finger to Stephanie McMahon as the real perpetrator who sent the text message. But the voice of the voiceless might have taken things a bit too far when he said,
"Put it in your wife's purse where obviously you keep your cell phone as well as your balls."
This provoked Nash to land a cheap shot to Punk in defense of his best friend. Now, the week that followed is where things really started to fall apart. After faking a car accident for some reason, Nash would reveal that he got signed by John Laurinaitis to a quote-unquote lucrative contract and was now a full-time WWE superstar. Punk, having heard enough, would demand the match to be made between him and Nash before throwing pot shots at Triple H and his wife some more.
You don't wear the pants in the family, but you do wear her panties, don't you?
Furious, Triple H relented and made it official, CM Punk versus Kevin Nash at Night of Champions. Except, that match never happened, as later that night, Triple H told Punk that the match was off and that he was gonna face him instead. But why? Well, for years, it was reported that this was because of Kevin Nash failing the wellness policy due to a medical substance he was taking. However, more recently, Nash would shed more light into the situation, as according to him, the reason why the match got cancelled in the first place was due to personal dynamics. weeks, and that it was Hunter himself who made the call behind the scenes to change the plans. But regardless of the reason, CM Punk versus Triple H was the match we got, and weeks before Night of Champions, the two would have another tense confrontation during their contract signing on SmackDown. And after being insulted for weeks on end, Triple H finally fired back with some choice words of his own.
You will only accept change if it means CM Punk is on top.
This was a great segment as it felt like both men were coming from a place of real-life hate towards each other.
You're too short-sighted to see that Vince lost touch so very long ago.
The segment ended with Nash coming down the ring as all hell broke loose. But in order to focus on the build-up for Triple H versus CM Punk, Nash had to get written off the story for the meantime, so on the following Raw, he was fired by Triple H after admitting that he was the one who faked sending the text message after all, again for some reason. With a few weeks left till Night of Champions, the game decided to throw a curveball by announcing that the match will now be no disqualification. And if that's not enough, CM Punk raised the stakes by goading Triple H to put his job as COO on the line, which he surprisingly did. On the Go Home Raw show, we'd get one last great promo from both men, which quite fittingly closed with a literal pipe bomb to Triple H's face. It is now time for the blow-off match to this convoluted feud. The match surprisingly went on last, which I guess made sense since it probably had the most build-up going in. But I just find it ironic that a non-title match main evented a pay-per-view called Night of Champions, which speaks a lot about the quality of the card. Anyway, the match started off hot. Punk jumped Triple H as the bell rang, causing a brawl to break out on ringside. They made real good use of the environment here. You got Punk diving off the stage props, then just yeeting every stack of bags he could find. You got the usual chair spot with Triple H destroying Punk's leg, which he sold perfectly by the way. And then there's the awesome table spot with a picture-perfect Macho Man elbow drop. Towards the end of the match, The Miz and R-Truth would come down to the ring and hit their finishers on both men. You see, around this time, these two goofballs believed that there was some huge conspiracy against them and they wanted Triple H to lose so that he'll get fired. But that didn't work out, and after the kick out, we got the best spot of the night. Referee Scott Armstrong decks The Miz with a solid looking punch and the crowd went wild. He got beat up for his efforts sadly though. And after a crap ton of false finishes, with everyone and their mother getting involved, including a wild Kevin Nash appearing to no one's surprise, the match finally ended with Triple H hitting a third pedigree to get that 1, 2, 3. What an absolute clusterfuck. The match honestly started off really strong, but then devolved into this interference galore that got too ridiculous at some point. This, on top of that god-awful decision to have Triple H go over CM Punk, just made a lot of fans like me sour on this match. But I guess we should have expected it, given how if Triple H loses, he has to step down as COO, and it was too early for that to happen at the time. And since this was the last time these two had a match against each other, then that meant that Punk actually lost the feud. After this, Punk and Triple H would sort of make amends, teaming together against The Miz and R-Truth at Vengeance 2011 before going off their separate ways. CM Punk finally got his push back after getting derailed for months by winning back his WWE Championship at Survivor Series that year. And as for Triple H, well, he finally moved into a proper feud with Kevin Nash and found out that they had absolutely zero chemistry in the ring. So, how bad was the CM Punk versus Triple H feud actually? If we're just looking purely at the promos, then no doubt there's a lot of good to be said there. Every time Triple H and CM Punk exchanged words, it felt like they had some real-life personal beef, and a lot of what was said in those promos still ring true even today. Even just watching Punk verbally dissect Kevin Nash made for some entertaining television. But the problem is just everything else about it. I fully believe that this feud would have been way better had this just been about the personal hatred between two men with massive egos. But instead, what we got was a convoluted conspiracy angle involving a whodunit with an old as dirt Kevin Nash sending text messages which all just felt too contrived and pointless. In fact, at some point, it felt like Punk was becoming a third wheel in this whole story as they were clearly building towards a feud between Nash and Hunter. And the cherry on top, Triple H pulling the strings yet again to have himself go over the most over star in the company just out of spite, which ended up benefiting nobody. The only thing the feud really did was derail the summer of Punk instead of just letting him have banger feuds for the title. So I guess in a way, they achieved their goal of wasting everybody's time. But what do you think? How should WWE have booked the CM Punk and Triple H feud? Let me know in the comments below. Till the next video, peace.